Bridge Mom. I'm Jessica and you're watching the Halloween series. This video is all about the symbols of Halloween. Symbols have been used throughout all time as a way of communicating, and symbols have a way of invoking different feelings. We've all seen history debated about what symbols on the inside of a cave wall imply. We use symbols to write music, do math, make art. Symbols are used in religion and astrology and marketing. There are secret languages that use symbols, and we even have modern day use of communicating with symbols done through using emoticons. It's said that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and so are symbols. Symbols, like pictures, contain messages and meaning that we can understand without even having to say or write a word for it. When we look at the symbols and colors, the imagery for Halloween, it's often portrayed as scary. Halloween has this reputation for being scary, unleashing evil, and much about Samhain has been inverted, misused, misunderstood. For instance, death is often taboo to talk about. It's not casually talked about. People are afraid of death, and they're afraid of what they don't know. Fears are exploited during modern day Halloween. In ancient times, people faced their fears. They carefully and respectfully worked with the spirit world. They understood death as part of life, and they also practiced spiritual and psychic protection methods. Nowadays, we focus on murder, gore, and evil running amok. We watch movies about it, read books and magazines about it, and we're desensitized to evil and left defenseless when we don't understand how to spiritually and psychically protect ourselves. Desensitizing entire generations to harmful acts is degrading to humanity and to ancient practices and beliefs. And in my opinion, we could greatly benefit humanity right about now by learning about some of the protection methods that ancients used in dealing with the spirit world. And I'm not just referring to Halloween or the fact that there are more evil acts done on Halloween, and that drives people into an even higher state of fear when it comes to Halloween. So, of course, if I don't stop myself now, I'll go off on a tangent. But symbols are powerful. And when we learn about symbology, we can understand ourselves better and understand a whole new way of communicating. And also how symbology is used to exploit our human nature, like through marketing. This is all way beyond what the video covers, but it's food for thought. So let's get back to the symbols of Halloween. Neo-pagan traditions don't look at symbols of things like cats and ghosts and skulls to mean something scary, morbid, or evil. Just like the ancient Celts, many neo-pagans have a different take on these symbols that are commonly used to instill fear in others. What can we learn from some of the most commonly used symbols during this time of year? So I don't have any favorite symbols. I love all the symbols associated with Halloween, but what about you? What symbols speak to you? Which ones scare you? Which ones get the wheels turning and really kind of make you think and wonder? One of the reasons why I ask you this has to do with clairvoyance or your intuitive abilities. Symbols are one of the ways that psychics or mediums develop their ability to connect with the other world. And psychic and medium is a fancy word for basically saying that they've been able to develop their intuition, which we all have the ability to do. A medium worth their salt will have taken a lot of time to learn what symbols, colors, and imagery means for them, so that when they do readings, they can decode what messages are coming through for their client. Working with symbols, studying them, and getting to know what they mean for you personally is a powerful way to hone in on your own intuitive abilities. So, side note, I'll briefly be discussing Halloween symbols, but this does not include dream symbology. I encourage you, as always, to research. If symbols appeal to you and you feel curious, go for it. Dig in and learn what different symbols mean for you. So I'm going to go over 10 of the most common symbols of Halloween. And guess what? Pumpkins are not included in this list, even though that's a no-brainer. So the first one we're going to talk about is ghost. Immediately, ghost suggests the dead. Upon seeing the symbol of a ghost, our mind turns to the supernatural and paranormal. For many of us, that's more than we're comfortable with exploring, so we don't. For some, they can't help but explore the other world, and the symbol of a ghost grabs their imagination right away. For ancient Celts, ghosts were the spirits that we welcome back during Samhain, the souls of their beloved dead ancestors. It wasn't scary to think about a deceased family member visiting for a night. Many looked forward to the chance to make contact. Ghosts can symbolize sadness, guilt, repression, can also symbolize the unconscious side of ourselves, the side that we're not always aware of. I've always viewed ghosts as sad and lost, souls that haven't made it into the ancestor realm. So they may have forgotten how they died, or even the fact that they did die. Perhaps they somehow missed the migration into the ancestor realm, or didn't do the work to become a well and healthy spirit in a higher dimension or the ancestor realm, and now they're earthbound. They're stuck. They're trapped here on earth as a ghost. And it seems to me that it'd be pretty lonely and frustrating to be a ghost. So that's why oftentimes when people think of ghosts, they think of them being scary or doing harm. Skeletons. So skeletons are similar to ghosts and their symbology. They instantly stir up death and dying in our thoughts. Skeletons in many cultures, though, symbolize rebirth, connection to our bones, to our DNA and lineage, and even fortune. Ancient tribes across the globe, not just the Celts, viewed death not as the end of life, but actually as freedom from the physical constraints of the third dimension world that we're part of, a world that's slow, dense, heavy, and veiled from all that is. Americans tend to have a really depressing view of death. So yes, losing a loved one is really hard to deal with, and it's hard to learn how to do life without somebody you love. I lost my mom a year ago, and grief is tough. But I believe, like so many other cultures do too, that death is part of life and that there's a spirit world, and we can still have contact and connection with people who have moved on into that world. It's just a lot different than what we know here in the physical realm. Skeletons are looked at as the medium, the connection, the bridge between life and death. They symbolize transformation of the once living moving on into the spirit realm. Skulls. So I don't know about you, but when I think of skulls, there's a few things that pop up. Pirates, ancient warriors and shamans wearing animal skulls on their heads, and mediums scrying into their crystal ball. So those are all symbology, by the way, too. Skull and crossbones, as many of us are familiar with, represent poison, warning, and danger. Skulls can also mean, though, life, strength, courage, wisdom. Skulls don't have to be ominous. They can symbolize facing the challenges in life with wisdom and courage. Skulls are used in spiritual work to overcome fear of death, or any fear for that matter, to communicate with the dead and symbolize the ancestor realm and the ability to be reborn. So skulls can also be symbolic of protection from evil and even illness. So you can see there's a lot of a variety of meaning to the symbol of a skull. So that's why you need to take time with each symbol to figure out what resonates for you, what it means for you. I'm drawn to skulls. I enjoy artwork with skulls. I decorate with plastic novelty skulls for Halloween, spiritually speaking. I also like crystal skulls and grid work for ancestor reverence and mediumship with ancestors and the spirit world. Spiders. Spider decor is everywhere during Halloween. Spiders are affixed to things. Fake webs are stretched out across doorways and fences, windows, and home decor. Many people are uneasy with spiders and have arachnophobia. These tiny crawling creatures bring out intense reactions in people, and it's a common phobia to be scared of spiders. Symbolically, spiders represent a lot too. They're associated to feminine energy, goddesses, the fabric of life, interconnectedness, illusion, destiny, balance, magic, wealth, luck, protection, power, fate, and creativity. There's a lot of lore to spider symbolism that I would need to do an entirely separate video series just on spiders and spider medicine and spiders and spirituality. In short, for Halloween, one of the ancient beliefs that if you saw a spider in your home on Samhain, it meant that a loved one was there and watching over you. The next one is broomsticks. So brooms have long been associated with witches. The imagery of witches flying across the sky with the moon behind them on a broom has captured our imagination for many generations. In another video, I discussed flying ointment, so you can get more information about what was really going on with brooms and witches of the old days. Ritual use of brooms can be found in multiple cultures, not just with pagans. Brooms act as a symbol for astral travel and dreams, a means for flying from this world into the spirit realm. However, it's the more practical uses and rituals associated to brooms that make them so meaningful to witches and other cultures around the world. The biggest use of a broom is to sweep away stagnant or negative energy. They can be placed with the bristles facing upward in order to collect any bad vibes floating in there, or you can simply just do a sweep around your home, kind of like how saging works, and just sweep away and trap any of the low vibrational energy that's in your space. There's superstitions around brooms too. The Chinese believe that you don't bring an old broom into a new home. You don't want to bring in the old energy from your old house into your new residence. Some use brooms in love spells by sweeping around the person of their affection. So another old wives' tale is to never sweep at night. It'll cause you horrible luck with finances and social gatherings. And the last one is to not sweep on New Year's Day because for the rest of the year you'll also suffer bad luck and sorrow. So no sweeping at night or on New Year's Day. Cats. Cats are associated to Halloween in more modern mythology because they're said to help witches and can be shapeshifters. In Celtic lore, there are cat fairies, and they are known as she. They're said to haunt Scottish Highlands and even steal souls. So when I was a baby, my Portuguese grandmother would tell my mom to keep the cat away from me, or else it would steal my breath and then steal my soul. However, according to Celtic beliefs, the cat she could also bless your home if you just leave it some cream in a saucer on Samhain. Ancient Celts also believed that spirits could possess cats when the veil thinned. So quick note, more black cats are abused and killed on Halloween. So if you have a black cat, keep them home and safe on this night. As mentioned so many times in this video series, there are people that'll find any excuse to do harm. So I believe that there's more good than rotten apples out there, but on this night, you should probably keep any animals you have safe at home. Bats. It's a mixed response from people if they like bats or not, whether they think they're cute or not. Many people see them as a gross rodent that carries disease, and others think they're adorable, and some attach spiritual meaning to bats. I happen to think bats are cute. I'm kind of almost an so ugly they're cute kind of way. And honestly, they're just really fascinating to look at. Halloween is always filled with images of bats. Bats are tied to the night, to vampires, and it's said that witches use the blood of bats in their spells. So I think there's probably only one of those things that's probably true. Bats are definitely nocturnal, but they don't turn into Count Dracula. On Halloween, we let our imaginations run wild, though, and we wonder if Transylvania is actually full of vampires. Part of the reason behind vampires being associated to bats is because there are 3 species of bats that actually do feed off of the blood of cattle, bugs, and other rodents. As for witches using bat blood in spells, well, that's going to come down to the belief of the witch. Some people practice dark magic, some people practice hoodoo or voodoo, and in those cases, animal parts might be used depending on the magic that's being done. However, I believe that the modern neo-pagan witches of today, they're not out to do harm. In fact, part of the Wiccan religion that's associated to neo-pagans, one of their beliefs is to do no harm. So witches love animals and they love nature. They're not out intentionally killing bats to make spells with them. Bats began to be associated with Samhain because during this festival, during Samhain, there was a huge community bonfire, and you can learn more about the bonfires in the fire video. But these bonfires would attract all the bugs, which then would attract the bats to come and eat the bugs. So that's how bats really became associated with Halloween. It's very simple. It's not exciting like vampires or blood and spells, but there you have it. FYI, if you didn't know, bats are actually more closely related to humans than they are to mice. In fact, they're not even classified as a mouse or a rat. So for you die-hard vampire fans out there, it could be one more reason to make sense of Count Dracula being a possibility, I suppose. Scarecrows. This Halloween symbol isn't just related to Halloween. Scarecrows are put out in the fields to keep animals and birds from eating the crops. In ancient culture, scarecrows were made with animal skulls. At the end of the harvest season, the scarecrows would be burned and their ashes would be returned to the soil of the land of the crops to symbolize the growth that would come back around in spring. And I don't know about you, but if I was an animal and saw a big old creature with an animal head on it, it would steer me clear. Cauldrons. So the cauldron has a long history of being steeped in magic, mysticism, and spirituality. Its round shape is symbolic of the womb and the darkness of the womb. Cauldrons have 3 legs, and this is also symbolic of the trinity of the mother, maiden, and crone. Cauldrons were used daily by ancient tribes. They were practical. They used them for cooking, but they also used them to burn incense in and put offerings in them. And then they were thought of as a symbolic portal for the dead. It was believed by the ancient pagan tribes that people's souls went into the cauldron, which symbolizes the great womb, the universal womb, the womb of Mother Nature, the womb of the goddess, the place where we all return after we die. So the cauldron held spiritual significance in ancient traditions. When the cauldron is stirred, it was said that new souls would enter into the womb of the goddess and eventually be reborn. The cauldron is also associated with the chalice known as the Holy Grail by Christians. My opinion, in short, is that a lot of conversion of pagans into Christians didn't mean that pagans didn't hide their true beliefs or rewrite them in a way that could be used by Christians that were forcing their conversion. Whatever the reason may be, the symbology is closely linked. So cauldrons have a lot of legend and lore, and again, it's one of those things that could take up a whole video by itself, but certainly we see why they fit so easily in with our modern Halloween stories. They're practical, and because of all the history around cauldrons, they're actually still used by many modern witches. And last but not least, the witch's hat. So we actually don't have a whole lot of evidence of how the pointed hat became connected with witches. Some speculate that it's when cone-shaped hats became all the rage, the trendy thing to do, to wear in rural communities and villages in the 1700s. So this is when we hear more about pagans living out in the countryside, and that's how it became associated to witches, because the concept of the witch's hat was born around the same time as the 1700s, when this was a very popular thing to be wearing. However, wearing a cone-shaped hat became seen as a cone of power far back in history in ancient Egyptian times. Archaeologists believe that ancient Egyptians wore cone-shaped hats to reach heaven, so they could absorb power from the divine. It's also suggested that the cone represents the ability to absorb the healing light from the sun. Again, cone of power. So no matter the reason for how the witch's hat became trendy, we know that it sits on the witch's head, and the head is associated with the crown chakra. And the crown chakra is associated with spirituality and our connection to source, to God, to universal energy. So that's it for the symbols of Halloween. Of course, there are so many more we could actually discuss, but I wanted to limit it to 10 to keep this video short and sweet. What other symbols can you come up with for Halloween that you enjoy, and what do they mean to you?